Welcome back to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we recalibrate your biology and rediscover your direction. I'm your host, Brandon Soika. Today's episode is a deep dive into a molecule that quietly powers some of the most critical functions in your body, yet almost no one is talking about it. It's not a stimulant, it's not a trendy new ingredient, but it is the signal that keeps your gut lining intact, your mitochondria humming, your immune system calm, your brain chemistry balanced, and your liver on track. This molecule is butyrate, and in today's episode, we're going to unpack why it's not just important, it's foundational. If you've struggled with inflammation, low mood, poor digestion, GI dysfunction, or fatigue that doesn't make sense, what you're about to hear may connect more dots than any lab report has ever shown you. If there's one molecule that holds the key to whole body recalibration, it's butyrate. Butyrate isn't a vitamin or a mineral. It's a short-chain fatty acid, a tiny signaling molecule produced in your colon when certain gut bacteria ferment dietary fiber. It's not something you ingest directly from food in meaningful amounts. It's something your microbiome makes when it's healthy, well-fed, and properly balanced. The catch? Most of us aren't producing nearly enough. Let's start with what butyrate actually does in the body. It fuels the cells that line your colon, colonocytes, giving them the energy to keep your gut barrier sealed tight and your immune system in check. It acts as an HDAC inhibitor, turning on genes involved in repair, antioxidant defense, and anti-inflammatory responses. It influences brain chemistry by helping transport tryptophan across the blood-brain barrier, boosting serotonin synthesis, and stabilizing mood. It supports liver detoxification and regulates immune tolerance. And it even helps your mitochondria make energy more efficiently, especially when glucose or fat metabolism is sluggish. If this sounds like a laundry list of unrelated effects, it's not. Butyrate doesn't treat those issues. It signals your biology to restore normal function. In the framework of the Metabolic Compass, butyrate is a cross-domain molecule. In the nurture domain, it reinforces gut-brain safety by strengthening the intestinal lining and modulating the immune system. In the withdraw domain, it supports liver detox and redox regulation. In Energize, it fuels mitochondrial ATP production. And in strengthen, it influences gene expression patterns related to inflammation, regeneration, and repair. In other words, it's not directional, it's foundational. Low butyrate makes every domain drift faster. Low butyrate doesn't show up clearly on standard labs, but you can feel it. Some signs your butyrate levels may be suboptimal. Persistent bloating or gas, even with clean eating. Loose stools, constipation, or alternating patterns. Brain fog or low mood that doesn't respond to typical therapies. Poor tolerance to probiotics or fiber supplements. Skin flares, food sensitivities, or histamine issues. Fatigue that worsens after meals. Feeling inflamed but not sick. These symptoms reflect one thing: a broken conversation between your microbiome and your metabolism. Butyrate is how those systems talk, and when the signal is weak, everything downstream suffers. It's tempting to think of butyrate as just gut fuel, but that undersells it significantly. In healthy colonocytes, butyrate is the preferred energy source, but when those cells are inflamed or damaged, something interesting happens. Butyrate activates gene-level instructions in stem cells to repair and replace them. This is called HDAC inhibition, short for histone deacetylase inhibition. It's a fancy way of saying butyrate can turn on repair genes that restore integrity from the inside out. Translation? Butyrate isn't just patching holes, it's rebuilding the wall. We spent so much time chasing protocols, diets, and supplements, but if your gut isn't making butyrate and your body isn't receiving it, you're trying to run a system with the wrong operating instructions. The good news? There are ways to restore the signal, both naturally and strategically. In the next segment, we'll dive into where butyrate comes from and why the microbiome-liver connection might be the missing link in your fatigue, mood, or inflammation story. You now know that butyrate is a powerful metabolic messenger. But what's equally important is where it comes from and why so many people, even the health conscious, are lacking it. Let's start with the simple truth. You don't make butyrate. Your gut bacteria do. Butyrate is produced through a process called microbial fermentation, specifically when certain beneficial bacteria in your colon break down dietary fibers that you can't digest. These fibers are called prebiotics, things like resistant starches found in cooked, cooled potatoes, green bananas, or rice, fructooligosaccharides, or FOS, galacto-oligosaccharides, GOS, inulin, pectins, arabinoxyans from whole grains. When these fibers reach your large intestine, they become fuel for your microbiome. And the byproduct of that microbial feast is butyrate. So yes, fiber is important, but the real point isn't to eat more fiber. It's to feed the right bugs, the ones that produce butyrate in the first place. Certain bacterial genera are known for making butyrate. Most well-known studied ones include Faecilibacterium proudnitzii, Rosburgia, Eubacteria rectal, and Clostridium cluster 4 and 14. These bugs tend to be more abundant in people with high microbial diversity, and notably lower in those with IBD, depression, obesity, insulin resistance, and autoimmune conditions. So if your microbiome lacks these strains, no matter how clean your diet is, you may still be functionally butyrate deficient. And here's the part almost no one talks about. When butyrate is produced in the colon, it's 1, taken up by colonocytes, the gut lining cells, 2, partially transported into the portal vein, 3, sent straight to the liver. This makes the liver the first organ downstream of microbial butyrate production, and that's a big deal. Your liver relies on butyrate to modulate inflammation, support glutathione production, improve mitochondrial efficiency, and assist in bile acid recycling and detox pathways. If butyrate isn't produced or doesn't reach the liver, the body loses a key regulatory signal. So when people talk about liver detox and gut health as if they're separate, they're missing the point. Butyrate is the conversation between your gut and your liver. And if your microbiome can't speak that language, your liver ends up flying blind. Several things can disrupt this pathway. Low microbial diversity, often from antibiotics, C-section birth, or ultra-sterile early environments. Lack of fermentable fibers. The modern diet is low in plant complexity. Overgrowth of opportunistic species like Candida or histamine producers that crowd out butyrate producers. Leaky gut. If the lining is inflamed, butyrate uptake is impaired. SIBO or motility issues. Butyrate should be produced in the colon. If fermentation happens too early, like in the small intestines, it leads to gas, bloating, and dysfunction. This explains why even people eating clean often have poor butyrate signaling. They're doing the right things on the surface, but their inner ecosystem isn't equipped to translate that effort into results. While butyrate doesn't show up directly in blood work, certain functional stool tests can give us a picture. You can look for butyrate concentration in stool, relative abundance of Faecilibacterium and Rosburgia, short-chain fatty acid ratios like acetate to propionate to butyrate, markers of inflammation like calprotectin, and barrier breakdown, zonulin. But the most powerful lab is still the one between your ears, your symptoms. If you've lost resilience, if every little stressor feels harder to bounce back from, there's a good chance your butyrate access is offline. In the Metabolic Compass framework, nurture drift begins when butyrate levels drop and gut-liver access weakens. Withdrawal drift deepens when liver detox and mitochondrial efficiency break down. And Energize drift accelerates when redox imbalance sets in. Butyrate production is like a microbial litmus test. It reflects whether your internal environment can support recalibration or is silently drifting further out of sync. The good news? Butyrate levels can be restored. And in the next segment, we'll explore exactly how butyrate functions in your body from gut to brain to mitochondria and why it deserves far more attention than it gets. Let's shift from where butyrate is made to what it actually does, because this is where things get fascinating. Butyrate is not just another gut health molecule. It's a multi-system messenger. Its reach extends far beyond digestion into your immune system, your mitochondria, your nervous system, and even your gene expression. Let's break down the key areas where butyrate drives recalibration and how those effects map onto the metabolic compass. 1. Gut barrier repair. Your intestinal lining is only one cell thick. That's all that separates the outside world from your bloodstream. Butyrate is the primary fuel source for healthy colonocytes, the cells that line your colon. When those cells are damaged or inflamed, they stop using butyrate as fuel and begin calling for backup. That's where butyrate steps in, not as fuel, but as a repair signal. It works through a mechanism called histone deacetylase, or HDAC, inhibition, which helps trigger stem cells to produce new colonocytes. Translation: butyrate doesn't just support the cells you have, it helps you build better ones. Once those new cells form and are consistently fed butyrate, they tighten the junction between them. That means less intestinal permeability, less immune activation, and a stronger sense of safety from the gut outward. In the compass model, this is how we begin to stabilize nurture. 2. Immune modulation without suppression. One of the most misunderstood features of butyrate is how it affects your immune system. It doesn't just turn off inflammation. Instead, it recalibrates it, teaching your immune cells the difference between a real threat and a false alarm. Specifically, it promotes the development of regulatory T cells, or Tregs, your immune peacemakers. It decreases production of pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. It helps your immune system tolerate you, reducing autoimmune overreactions and histamine reactivity. This is critical when recovering from chronic stress, infections, or inflammatory drift. 3. Mitochondrial efficiency and redox balance. Mitochondria love butyrate. In fact, butyrate has been shown to enhance ATP production, improve the function of uncoupling proteins which regulate metabolic heat and energy expenditure, and support redox balance by influencing the glutathione system. In plain English, your cells burn cleaner, they recover faster, and you produce energy with fewer inflammatory byproducts. This is why butyrate is so essential in resolving Energize drift, when mitochondrial function falters and fatigue sets in. 4. The brain connection, mood, focus, and the gut-brain axis. Butyrate doesn't just act locally, it has systemic effects, including in the brain. And here's where things get really interesting. Butyrate enhances the transport of tryptophan across the blood-brain barrier. And tryptophan is the precursor for serotonin, a key neurotransmitter that influences mood, digestion, and sleep. Low butyrate equals poor tryptophan shuttling, which equals serotonin bottleneck. That's one reason why people with IBS or gut issues often also struggle with anxiety, depression, or insomnia. Butyrate has also been shown to increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, reduce neuroinflammation, supports the brain's glial cells in resolving cellular debris. Together, these effects contribute to a calmer, more resilient nervous system. 5. Gene-level reset, epigenetic regulation. Butyrate's HDAC inhibition isn't just about gut repair. It also affects epigenetic signaling throughout the body. This means butyrate can turn on genes involved in cellular repair, detoxification, and antioxidant production, and turn off those involved in chronic inflammation or disease progression. This gene-level modulation may explain why butyrate has been linked to reduced colon cancer risk, better metabolic flexibility, and improved aging markers in animal studies. It's not acting like a drug. It's supporting your biology's natural ability to regulate itself, if given the right signals. So why does this all matter? We tend to think of health in compartments: gut health, immune health, brain health, mitochondrial health. Butyrate reminds us that biological systems are connected. When your microbiome produces enough butyrate and your body receives that signal, multiple compass domains begin to realign. This is what recalibration looks like. Less effort, more energy. Less guesswork, more clarity. Less chaos, more direction. And in the next segment, we'll explore why so many people are deficient in butyrate, even when they're eating well and taking care of themselves. By now, it's clear that butyrate plays a central role in nearly every system in your body. So the obvious next question is, if butyrate is this essential, why are we all running so low? Let's unpack the modern conditions that silently sabotage butyrate and why this deficiency rarely shows up in conventional testing. 1. Modern diets starve butyrate-producing bacteria. Butyrate is made when certain gut microbes ferment dietary fiber. The problem? Most modern diets are critically low in fermentable fiber, especially the complex plant-based types that feed the right bacteria. Even health-conscious people often avoid grains or legumes due to perceived inflammation, skip fruits or tubers during low-carb or keto phases, choose isolated fibers that don't support diversity, like chicory root alone. So even if you're eating clean, your microbiome may be undernourished and underperforming. 2. Microbial diversity is declining. Fiber isn't the only requirement. You also need the right bugs to ferment it. And those bugs, like Faecilibacterium praunici and Roseburia, are rapidly disappearing in Western guts. Why? Because of things like antibiotic use, especially early in life, cesarean births, formula feeding, ultra-sterile childhood environments, chronic stress, processed food additives that disrupt microbial balance. These factors create a microbiome that's less resilient, less diverse, and less functional. It's not just about having bacteria. It's about having the right ones doing the right jobs. 3. The illusion of clean labs. Butyrate deficiency doesn't show up as a red flag on your blood work. Your CBC, CMP, and cholesterol panel might all look normal. But if you got bloating, irregular digestion, histamine reactivity, mood instability, low resilience to stress, or fatigue that doesn't match your lifestyle, then you're probably not making or absorbing butyrate efficiently. This is why so many people fall through the cracks of the healthcare system. They're not sick enough to be diagnosed, but they're not well enough to feel like themselves. That's where butyrate lives, in the shadows of dysfunction, before disease has a name. 4. Functional drift, not disease. Butyrate insufficiency isn't a disease. It's a functional drift, one of the earliest signs that your biology is out of sync. Think about it like this. If your gut isn't producing butyrate, your colonocytes can't fuel up. If your colonocytes are weak, your gut barrier becomes leaky. If your barrier leaks, your immune system stays on alert. If your immune system is inflamed, your energy drops and your brain fogs. If your energy drops, your motivation fades and your goals get harder to reach. It all starts with a single missing signal. 5. The vicious cycle of drift. Low butyrate doesn't just cause dysfunction, it makes it harder to recover from it. Because without enough butyrate, you don't absorb nutrients as well, you react poorly to probiotics or fermented foods, your detox pathways back up, your mood and resilience take a hit, and you're more likely to drift into restrictive eating patterns that worsen the cycle. This is why we see clients who say, "I'm doing everything right, but I still feel off." The nurture drift often begins with low butyrate before it spirals into immune and gut breakdown. A withdrawal drift can deepen when the liver and redox systems stop receiving the butyrate signal. And an Energize drift becomes more resistant to recovery without the mitochondrial support butyrate provides. If you've tried all the surface level solutions, better sleep, smarter exercise, cleaner eating, and still feel like something's missing, it might be this. You're not feeding the signal that drives recalibration. Butyrate is that signal. And in the next segment, we'll explore how butyrate supplementation is notoriously tricky until now. We've established just how critical butyrate is for gut integrity, immune modulation, mitochondrial energy, and even brain chemistry. But if most people aren't producing enough, the next question is obvious. Can I just take it? The answer is yes, but not all forms of butyrate are created equal. And until recently, supplementing with butyrate was more of a theoretical solution than a practical one. Butyrate is notoriously tricky to work with. It presents three main challenges. Volatility. Free butyric acid is unstable and breaks down easily in the digestive tract. Tolerability. Its potent smell and taste make most oral forms difficult to stick with long term. And inconsistent results. Traditional formats like sodium butyrate or coated butyrates vary widely in performance depending on the individual's gut environment. That means the vast majority of butyrate products on the market either don't deliver enough active butyrate, aren't tolerated well, or both. So even if the science is solid, most people weren't getting enough to feel the difference. And that's what makes BIOMEnd different. Rather than using coatings, esters, or basic salts, BIOMEnd is a conjugated amino acid salt, specifically a stable molecular pairing of L-lysine and butyric acid. This form improves stability. The conjugated salt form is buffered and more chemically stable than free butyric acid. Palatability. It eliminates the strong taste that makes most butyrate formulas difficult. Consistency. It performs reliably regardless of microbiome variability or digestive conditions. No fancy coatings, no complicated delivery gimmicks. Just a cleaner, more usable form of butyrate that fits into modern health protocols. Clinical proof. In a 2024 pharmacokinetics study, 3 forms of butyrate were compared. Sodium butyrate, a common salt form, spray-dried tributyrin, a popular triglyceride-based form, and BIOMEnd, the lysine butyrate salt. The results? BIOMEnd showed the highest systemic bioavailability measured by area under the curve for plasma butyrate. Spray-dried tributyrin performed 5 times worse than BIOMEnd in terms of total systemic exposure. While sodium butyrate significantly outperformed tributyrin, it was still nearly 2 times worse than BIOMEnd. The takeaway: not all butyrates are equal, and tributyrin, despite the marketing hype, is a vastly inferior source. BIOMEnd isn't just better tolerated, it works better. And that's what matters when your goal is whole system recalibration. One of the best features of BIOMEnd is its versatility. Because it's tasteless and easy to mix, most people take it by adding it to morning protein shakes, mixing it into greens or other gut health formulas, or stirring it into smoothies. In the Metabolic Compass model, butyrate is one of the few interventions that support multiple domains. In Nurture, it helps rebuild the gut-liver axis. In Withdraw, it supports the brain-liver detox loop and redox reset. In Energize, it improves mitochondrial fuel efficiency and antioxidant balance. The truth is, you can't guess your way to recalibration. You need signal molecules that work upstream, and butyrate is one of the few that does. With BIOMEnd, we now have a tool that's accessible, consistent, and clinically validated to support that recalibration at the molecular level. In the next segment, we'll break down what happens when your butyrate levels begin to rise, what you feel, what changes you'll see in your labs, and why it just might be the reset your biology has been missing. You've heard the science. You've seen how traditional supplements fall short and how BIOMEnd overcomes those barriers. But what does it actually feel like when your body finally has enough butyrate? Let's unpack what happens on both the subjective level, how you feel, and the objective level, what changes in labs and biomarkers once this signal is restored. 1. Your brain starts to stabilize. One of the most surprising but consistent effects of butyrate is on mood, clarity, and emotional resilience. Why? Because butyrate enhances brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF, a key molecule for neuroplasticity and cognition. Supports the transport of tryptophan across the blood-brain barrier, allowing better serotonin production. It reduces microglial overactivation, the neuroinflammatory pattern often linked with anxiety and brain fog. In practice, users often report, "I feel calmer, my thoughts feel more organized, I don't feel as overwhelmed by little things." And that shift tends to show up before any changes in digestion. 2. The gut barrier begins to repair. When butyrate levels rise, one of the first physical effects is improved gut integrity. That means less bloating or distension after meals, more regular and well-formed stools, decreased food sensitivities and histamine-type reactions, a general feeling of reset in the digestive tract. Why? Because butyrate fuels the colonocytes, specifically the healthy, non-inflamed ones, and helps regulate the gut lining through HDAC inhibition, encouraging the differentiation of intestinal stem cells. It's like patching the holes in your digestive roof so the internal environment can finally stabilize. 3. Your labs may begin to shift. Over time, improved butyrate signaling can influence key biomarkers, including lower ALT and AST. These are markers of liver strain or inflammation. Improved HDL and triglyceride ratios. Stabilized fasting glucose and insulin sensitivity. And lower C-reactive protein as the immune system calms down. These shifts won't all happen at once, but over weeks to months, they point to a body that's no longer in silent drift. And what's powerful here is that these improvements are secondary effects. You're not directly targeting inflammation, blood sugar, or cholesterol, but as butyrate begins to regulate core systems, the downstream changes follow. 4. Energy feels more even. This is one of the most common comments we hear. I don't have more energy like a jolt, but I have more even energy all day. Why? Because butyrate isn't a stimulant, it's a mitochondrial stabilizer. It supports the redox balance inside cells, helping you create ATP more efficiently without generating excessive reactive oxygen species, or ROS. And once your mitochondria stop fighting fires, they can start powering your day again without the crack. 5. The whole compass responds. Butyrate isn't isolated to a single system. It's a cross-domain signal. So as levels begin to normalize, the nurture system, gut, liver, immune, gets more stable and less reactive. The withdraw system, brain, liver, detox, becomes more regulated and less inflamed. The Energize system, mitochondria and redox, runs cleaner, more efficient cycles. This is why so many people feel like their biology is finally clicking back into place, even if they can't explain it in medical terms. It's not magic. It's the power of restoring a missing input. So here's the real-world impact. We've worked with people who've tried gut healing diets, hormone replacement therapy, detox protocols, and adaptogens and brain supplements, and still felt stuck. Then we introduced butyrate, and within 2 weeks, they say, it's like my body finally got the memo. That's the difference between adding noise, more inputs, and more confusion, and restoring the signal. In the final segment, we'll give you a clear next step to assess whether butyrate is the missing signal in your biology and what to do about it if it is. If you've been listening to this episode and thinking, this sounds like everything I've been feeling, there's a reason for that. Butyrate is not just some niche gut molecule. It's a biological signal that tells your system you're safe, you're stable, you can heal. When it's missing, systems disconnect. When it's restored, they begin to synchronize again. So the next question is, how do you know if this is your missing signal? If you haven't already, take the free drift quiz at the metaboliccompass.com/quiz. It helps you map where your biology is most out of sync, whether that's nurture, energize, strengthen, or withdraw. Why does this matter? Because while butyrate influences all 4 compass domains, it's especially critical if your gut is inflamed or unpredictable, you feel emotionally dysregulated or overstimulated, you've had trouble responding to traditional detox or mitochondrial protocols, or you've tried everything and still feel like something's missing. If that sounds like you, then recalibrating butyrate is a smart first step. Step 2, consider adding BIOMEnd. If you're looking for a reliable, easy-to-use source of butyrate, BIOMEnd is the one we trust. It's tasteless, stable, and supported by the strongest bioavailability data available. You don't need high doses. Just 1 to 2 grams per day, mixed into a shake or smoothie, can begin to shift the internal terrain. And if you're already working through a compass reset, it's one of the most foundational signals to include. Step 3. Understand this is a signal, not a stimulant. This isn't about masking symptoms. It's about reestablishing communication across systems that have gone silent. So if you begin using BIOMEnd, don't expect a jolt. Expect recalibration. For some, that's better digestion or mental clarity within days. For others, it's a slow but steady rewiring of energy, sleep, and inflammation. Either way, it's not a bandage. It's a biological message you're safe to heal. Now that we've explored one of the most powerful molecular signals your body responds to, next week we're talking about one of the most powerful environmental signals. Because believe it or not, morning light may be the most important and overlooked hormone reset tool you have access to. In episode 17, we'll explore how your brain's master clock affects metabolism, mood, and inflammation, why sunlight regulates cortisol, melatonin, and even sex hormones, and how simple 5 to 10 minute exposures in the morning can completely shift your biological rhythm. You don't need more supplements, you need better signals. Butyrate is one of them, light is another. And when you combine both, your biology doesn't just improve, it remembers how to heal. See you in episode 17. You've been listening to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we bridge cutting-edge science with real-life application to help you reclaim your health one directional shift at a time. To learn more, visit us at www.themetaboliccompass.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Metabolic Compass. And if you haven't already, leave a review. It helps others find their way back to alignment too. Recalibrate your biology, rediscover your direction.